Hello, and welcome back to the show. It has been a long week since we last spoke. As I always say, so much happened. So grab your coffee and get ready because we're jumping right into everything that happened in Hollywood this past week. Here is what you missed. TikTok stars Tony Lopez and wife Sarah Jade Blue are splitting after she filed for divorce just 8 months after they tied the knot. Trey Songz is being investigated for a sexual assault allegation made against him. Tiffany Haddish and Common have split, chalking it up to distance. Chris Como has officially been suspended by CNN indefinitely. Marilyn Manson's house was raided after they too had sexual assault allegations placed against them. But there's also a lot of great news this week, like Lindsay Lohan getting engaged, and Ty Pennington from Extreme Home Makeover getting engaged to her longtime girlfriend. Plus, Kim Kardashian won the 2021 People's Fashion Icon Award, and Christina Aguilera won the People's Music Icon Award for 2021. Pete Davidson is showing off his sister at a Lakers game. Adam Levine is tattooing his face with a rose. Britney Spears says she's finally on the right medication following the end of her conservatorship. Channing Tatum confirmed the production of Magic Mike 3, and Cara Delevingne is set to star in the new season of Only Murders in the Building. Okay, I know that was a lot. I threw a ton at you, but of course we aren't done yet. This week the headlines were crazy to say the least, many of which were pretty sad, but we still need to shed light on them. Beginning with the first interview conducted that allowed Alec Baldwin to share his side of what happened on the set of the movie Rust. He sat down with ABC News to set the record straight. Tears were shed, and I have to say, it really looked like he's aged a lot. You can tell that this is weighing on him heavily. At the time of this recording, the interview has not yet taken place. I have seen teaser clips, but I'm happy to break it down in the next episode. The ABC reporter says, quote, "This is the most intense ABC interview I've ever experienced. He was so raw, you can imagine that he's devastated, but he's also very candid. He's very forthcoming. He answered every question. He talked about Helena Hitchkins meeting her family, and he talked in detail about what happened on set that day." Unquote. In the teaser, he cries and says he wonders what he could have done differently, and I'm sure that a lot share that same sentiment, especially those that were on set. He also claims that he didn't know that there was a bullet in the gun and that he never would point the gun and pull the trigger, but instead the gun misfired. This, of course, is in regards to the shooting of Helena, and it's an ongoing investigation. There will also be a 2020 episode following the interview, and you can see details on each by going directly to my show notes. It'll be great to get Alec's side of the story as to what happens, but I don't really think any of the information we hear is going to be surprising. What was surprising this week was the news that Virgil Abloh passed away. Virgil was the artistic director for Louis Vuitton and the CEO of Off-White. He was a creative genius, and he was only 41 years old, meaning that not only was his life cut short, but he accomplished so much during the time that he was alive. The post came from his verified Instagram page and said, quote, "Virgil battled a rare aggressive form of cancer. He chose to endure his battle privately since his diagnosis in 2019, undergoing numerous challenging treatments, all while helming several significant institutions that span fashion, art, and culture." Unquote. Obviously, no one knew of this. He worked all the way up until the day he died and even was posting promotions literally the day before. He's had collaborations with major brands like Nike and is connected to a ton of A-list celebrities. One in particular is Kanye West, and that's because he was also a DJ, being the most notable protege of Kanye West. It's honestly amazing how much he accomplished and how he changed the fashion industry forever. Speaking of shocking news, Tiana Taylor was taken to the emergency room after her body shut down right before a concert. This happened in Connecticut, and she shared a photo from the hospital bed urging viewers to listen to their bodies and give themselves a break. Along with performing, she's a mother and has a show which follows her and her husband. Therefore, she's obviously never able to shut her body down. Most of us don't really have that crazy of a life, but I still think it's a good lesson to learn from this. And Bradley Cooper almost had a surprise hospital stay as well when he was held at Knifepoint in New York City. Apparently, this happened in 2019 on the subway, but he's just now sharing his story on Armchair Expert, which is Dax Shepard's podcast. He says he remembers seeing the assailants' eyes and thinking how young they were. It was almost noon and he was wearing headphones, so he couldn't really hear what the guy was saying, but he did see that he had a knife. And he described the knife as a 3-inch blade with a wooden handle. First, Bradley ran from the assailant, but when he took his phone out to snap a picture of the man's face, the tables turned. The suspect started running away from Bradley, and Bradley started running after him. The lesson that he learned from this was to never get too comfortable in a city, and I think that's a really relatable lesson for a lot of my listeners out here in LA. You can see the CCTV footage in my show notes. On the topic of Bradley Cooper, his former co-star Lady Gaga is under fire in the press right now for her recent film. And this isn't just the press or viewers that are sparking this, it's actually the Gucci family themselves that are discrediting the film. The biggest issue they took with the film was the glorification of the woman who placed the hit on the fashion icon. They obviously also felt that the media was exploiting their family, which has had many moments of bad press, even before this film. They believe that if the story was told, it should be truthfully and in its entirety. Lady Gaga says that she did her best to try to portray the role as truthfully as possible. Apparently, she even spoke in an Italian accent for 9 months and never broke character even when the cameras were off. They also went deep into the Gucci archive to create the wardrobe for the film, and with all of that said, there's still talk of the film winning an Oscar. This just goes to show Lady Gaga's superpowers, and for the New York Times breakdown of the film versus the real story, you know where to find it. Switching gears a little bit, during her time on Red Table Talk, Sandra Bullock discussed what she faced when adopting 2 children. For this one, I really recommend watching the full video, which of course I'll link because it's actually very beautiful. She talks about what it's like to raise 2 young black children as a white woman, especially in Hollywood. She also talks about what it's like to bring a child into a loving home after they've been through the foster care system and were traumatized by it. She talks about what it's like to see her son wear a hoodie and understand the fear of other mothers when their sons grow up to be young black men and leave the house. To be honest, I didn't even know that she had adopted children, and it was definitely not only refreshing to hear, but really sets a great example for the industry and the world as a whole. And I'm going to let that be my great news for the week, because the only other headline I wanted to discuss was that Rihanna was pregnant with A$AP Rocky's baby. But as I'm recording this, I see news breaking that she has absolutely shut those rumors down, so we'll just have to keep hoping it comes true one day. That's it for this week's headlines. Don't forget you can read more details on each by clicking the link in my show notes. If you have any headlines you want covered or have thoughts on this week's, DM me on Instagram at MeganTheMorningPodcast. And I'll be back next week to catch you up on the latest pop culture news.